Okay. All right. Let's get going. So you're here to learn how to stop ruminating. And if you've done my course, you know that when you ruminate or when you go into any negative state, you've gone into a trance. The brain operates via trance states. I liken it to an iPhone. On your iPhone, you have 20, 50, maybe even more apps on your phone, and the app that you're using is what you're doing, right? And your brain is the same way. It has many, many trance states, and what you're doing depends on what trance state you're in. And you can do these things, you can do these tasks largely without thinking. It doesn't really require a lot of mental effort for you to do these things. It's kind of on autopilot, and because of that, it's very similar to sleeping, right? And you're not really you're there, but you're not really, right? Kind of like when you watch TV, your eyes kind of gloss over and you kind of get lost in the story. If you could see yourself when you're ruminating and compare what you look like when you're watching TV as to when you're ruminating, you would see very similar facial expressions and muscle relaxation and all that. That's because they're very similar trance states, and you're not really actively doing anything. You're kind of basically just kind of watching the stream go by. So one of the things you can do to stop that trance state is when you become aware of it, is to call it out. Oh, I'm ruminating. And that may be enough to kind of wake your brain up and to kind of take a step away from what it was doing a moment ago. Uh, it it's it's not going to be that effective when you first do it, but the more you do it, the stronger it's going to become. The Because you're developing a new mental habit, right? And so the first time you do it, it's really just something that you did, but the more you do it, the more you train your brain to walk away from those thoughts. When you say, "Oh, I'm ruminating," the better it's going to get. So start making the habit of saying, "Oh, I'm ruminating." You don't have to say it out loud, but at least say it to yourself. Say it in your mind, and that may be enough to wake you up, right? Because you're in a dreamlike state when you're ruminating. All right. Um, Next up is I want you to define what your rich and meaningful life would be, right? What do I mean by that? What is the perfect day for you? Like, what does the perfect day have to look like? What are you doing with your time? What are you doing with your energy? Who are you talking with? You know, what do you need to do in a day to feel fulfilled and to feel happy? Define what that is. And then define who you want to become. You're on a journey right now. You're obviously here because you're on a journey of self-improvement. So, who are you trying to become? What do you want to do with your life once you've gotten over this hump? Um, is there any new job that you want to pursue? Are there any new hobbies you want to do? Do you want to write the next great American novel? What is it that you want to do? Define that. Who do you want to be next year? Who do you want to be 5 years from now? What do you want them to say about you at your funeral? And so define that and be as descriptive as you can. Next, write up the steps that you need to take in order to achieve those to achieve those states and to become that person that you want to become. What steps need to be taken and what steps can be taken right now to enable that transformation to take place? Next, and this is may not sound important, but it's actually probably one of the more important of the steps, is to write down all the bad things that will happen if you stay on your current course. Because currently, when you ruminate, there are no bad consequences. There are no bad outcomes other than you feel bad, right? Your brain doesn't really associate anything bad with it. It's just something that it does. Write out all the bad things that are going to happen if you don't stop thinking these thoughts and um, having these emotional states and losing your days to these thoughts. What are all the bad things that are going to happen if you don't become the person that you want to become? Write out 10, write out 20, 50, 100 reasons. Write out as many reasons as you, or things that will happen as you can, right? And then the next time you find yourself ruminating, you say, I'm ruminating, and you stop. I want you to pull out these sheets and I want you to read through everything that you wrote. Remind yourself who you want to become. Remind yourself the steps that need to be taken. And then remind yourself, oh, these are all the bad things that are going to happen if I don't change course. You need to start associating bad things with rumination. Make it an unpleasant thing for your brain to do. Just because you feel bad isn't enough. Your brain needs to realize, oh, there are consequences to this, consequences that extend beyond the now. I don't want those things to happen, right? So read through your list and remind yourself, oh, these are all the bad things that are going to happen to me if I do not stop my ways and pursue my rich and meaningful life. Have them printed out, have them on your person, and ready to pull out once you pull yourself out of that trance, once you pull yourself out of that dreamlike state of ruminating. All right? Um, got a few here. Stay with me. Um, so the next one is to call up a loved one or to call up a friend. When you ruminate, it requires you to access the verbal part of your brain. You largely think in words. It's not 100%, but you largely think in words. And if you force yourself to have a conversation with someone and be an active participant in that conversation, it's really easy to pretend like you're in a conversation but still be thinking about your shit. Be an active participant in the conversation. Listen to what is being said to you. Ask questions. Offer your side, offer your input, really have it be a rich conversation. If you do that, your brain's not going to ruminate because it can't have two conversations at once. It can't, right? You know, uh, you may think you're the best ventriloquist there ever was, but even a ventriloquist can only say one thing at a time, right? Your brain can't ruminate and have a rich conversation with someone. So if possible, call up a loved one and just see catch up. Ask them what's going on in their lives. Obviously, don't talk about what you've been ruminating on. We don't want to um, give any more fuel to the fire by getting someone else to agree that yeah, you should be upset about that. Yeah, you should. Like, what are you going to do next time? Yeah, let's figure that out. Don't do that. Talk about something else. Move on. Look at something else. It's a big world out there, and you're focused on one thing, right? Let's focus on something else, and that will help pull you out. But obviously, if it's late in the night and you don't want to wake anyone up, write an email. Write a really long email and catch up with someone that you haven't talked to in a while. Make it an email that they can read while they're having their morning cup of coffee, and it takes them a few minutes to get through. Put some effort into it. Make it really well written. Try to be funny and whatnot. Um, or you can also maybe it's maybe not the greatest of options, but it's an option. You could have a conversation with an AI. Talk with an AI about a book that you're reading. Ask it. Don't lecture to me. Have a conversation with me. Ask me questions and tell me what you think, and make it seem like a real conversation. That way, you're really active in what you're saying and what you're thinking. Again, your brain cannot have two conversations at once, and so uh, activate that verbal part of your brain and point it in another direction, and the rumination, it can't exist during that time frame, and maybe that will be enough to pull you out of your emotional state, and you can move on with your day. Um, on a similar wavelength, you can write the rumination down. Sometimes we ruminate because there's a nebulous nature or aspect to what's upset us. We're upset, but we don't fully understand why. We haven't really made all the conscious connections. Your unconscious has, but your conscious, the conscious part of you hasn't. And so one of the things you can do is to write it down so you can give your rumination form and give it substance and start really understanding the full spectrum of why you're upset. When we have nightmares, we often have them because there are unprocessed emotions. And so we ruminate for a lot of the same reasons that we have nightmares, because we haven't really actually allowed ourselves to feel what we need to feel to fully process what happened. So write out everything that's going on in your head, everything that you're saying to yourself, everything that was said to you, everything that was done to you, everything you wish you had said, wish you were done, that you're going to, right? Write all of it out. Give it form, give it substance, right? And process those emotions. Now, the brain, another thing you can do is tear the sheet out of the notebook and crumple it up, because the brain, it largely operates on metaphor and symbolism, uh, much more so than people realize. It likes to make connections to things that shouldn't be connected, and it understands symbolism really, really well. And so, tear that sheet of paper out of your notebook, crumple it up, and throw it away or burn it to your unconscious. It's going to mean, oh, we're letting this go. We're moving on, right? So make the symbolic act of doing that. A lot of people have had success with this, so give it a shot. You know, it either works or it doesn't, right? But give it a shot. Okay. Next up is to ask yourself what's the purpose of this self talk, right? What's the purpose? Is it trying to give you safety? Is it trying to help you regain control? Is it trying to protect you from future pain and misery? What is it doing? And so once you understand what's going on, you might be able to do something to kind of make yourself feel better in the here and now. For example, if you're worried about meeting the narcissist next week, um, because he was really abusive to you the last time you saw him, maybe arrange to have a friend meet you um, before he comes over or before you meet him in a public space. Have them be there with you for emotional support. Um, if he's coming to get something, have a plan to say, "Oh, we can't meet at the house." Give him a reason, or don't give him a reason, and say, "I'll meet you at Target. You can get your stuff there," and have it waiting for him in a little box in a cart. And as soon as he arrives, you leave. Have a plan. And if you have a plan that's going to keep you safe, your brain may let whatever it is you've been thinking about go. It may move on, right? But it can't do that unless you actually acknowledge what's the purpose of this self talk. Once you um, acknowledge its purpose, you may be able to take the steps needed to kind of make yourself feel better. And on a similar note, once you've acknowledged that you're ruminating and you said, I'm ruminating, you can uh, you can ask yourself, okay, well, what triggered me? Something set me off. What was it? And you might be able to find the source of what actually triggered you into rumination. For example, say you were watching a drama and there was spousal abuse on the TV show. And then you got to thinking about your last relationship. And then you got to thinking about the last thing he said to you. And then you would start thinking about what you should have said and all that. Well, all of that was a chain reaction from the show that you were watching, right? So if you can figure out what your triggers are, you can begin to avoid those situations that will set you off. Obviously, this is not a long-term solution. The long-term solution would be to use uh, memory reconsolidation, which I'll talk about in a minute, to kind of get rid of your triggers. But for now, you can begin spotting whatever it was that set you off and try to avoid those situations. Try to avoid those situations until you can take the time to get rid of those triggers, right? Um, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. Next up, rephrase. People, when they are ruminating, will often say negative things to themselves. Like, I should have left him. I should have left him when I was, 23. I shouldn't have gotten back with him. I'm an idiot for getting back with him. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? I'm so stupid. Well, those are affirmations. You can have positive affirmations and you can have negative affirmations. Affirmations are simply anything you affirm, you give validity to, right? And by constantly having these thoughts, you are basically programming yourself to be that person, right? So once you recognize that you're ruminating and and you pull yourself out, instead of saying to yourself, "I am an idiot," say to yourself, "I am having the thought that I am an idiot." Your brain, it has many, many, many thoughts throughout the day, but you're choosing to give strength and importance to just a few thoughts, right? Well, we can take away some of the emotional charge of those thoughts by disassociating ourselves from them and not allowing ourselves to feel like we are our thoughts. Whatever it is we're thinking, that's who we are. We can change that by saying, I am having the thought that. And so that will change the importance of that thought, and it'll become just one of many that you have throughout the day. You may have it. We can't stop the flow of thoughts. If we tried to do so, we would just have an explosion of negativity, such as, well, as we do when we're having a nightmare. Um, but we can kind of gently reframe them. And by reframing them, we disassociate from ourselves from them and give them less importance. So try that one out. That one, like the first one I told you, gets stronger and stronger the more you do it. Once you recognize you're ruminating, allow yourself to have that same thought and say, I am having the thought that. And you may even want to say, add a but phrase to that. But I am in the process of becoming my best self, right? That will reframe it and remind yourself that you're on a journey and you may not have gotten 100% to where you want to go, but at least you're on the path and you're on your way there, right? Okay, next up, this one doesn't sound like it would be of any benefit to you, but and it may sound counterintuitive, but give yourself time to ruminate, especially if you've been doing so when you shouldn't be. Say, like, you're with your son or daughter and you find yourself constantly thinking about your ex and just feeling bad, but you're with someone that you love and you wish that you could just be more present. Or you're doing it at work. Um, Tell yourself, okay, I'm ruminating right now. Pull yourself out of the trance of rumination. Say, I'm ruminating right now. I will ruminate at 8 p.m. tonight. But then you need to follow through. Don't try to lie to yourself. You need to follow through and give yourself time to process those unprocessed emotions. And pair it up with the writing it out strategy. But give yourself time. Give yourself time to vent. If the mind knows it will have a moment later in the day to fully vent and release, it will allow you to focus on what you are doing then and there. All right. You may have to remind it a few times, but just be consistent and say, I will ruminate later. I cannot do so right now. All right. Next one up is to basically give yourself a project. Give yourself a project to do. I call it, bake bread, right? You don't need to literally bake bread, but if you have a project that, like a house project that you can do, get up and do it as soon as you realize you're ruminating. If you just started painting a room but you didn't finish, well, go paint that room for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or however long it takes, and then be 100% focused on what you're doing. The brain can't do two things at once, or at least can't do them very well. And so, if you give it a project that requires your mental attention and your mental energy, it can't use that energy to ruminate at the same time, right? And you may need to kind of steer the ship a little bit and say, I'm ruminating the moment you kind of get lost in whatever you're doing and like it doesn't require your full mental energy. But the idea is to find a project that does. Find a project that does require your mental energy and put yourself in it, right? Okay. Next, visualization, and this is kind of a two-parter. When you find yourself ruminating and you say, "Oh, I'm ruminating," you can visualize a stop sign, right? Visualize a stop sign, and that will kind of add a little extra push to your brain to pull it out of the trance of the rumination. Um, this is one that also gets stronger and stronger the more you do it, and it's very closely tied to other modalities such as the BSFF, the Be Set Free Fast that I talked about in the course by Larry Nims. Um, you can you can do a stop sign, and that may be enough for you. But you can also put in the extra footwork and kind of tell yourself, okay, when I visualize this image or this word in my mind, I want you to go to a positive state. And you may need to do some little extra reading on this. It's kind of a lot to get into in this little mini lecture. But like for me, I love Savannah, Georgia. I've gone on a lot of vacations there. I have a lot of really good experiences there with my family. And so just by saying the word Savannah, I am reminded of those positive mental states. And so you can ask yourself, what is it? What's a word or a phrase that kind of makes me feel good when I think of it? For me, it's Savannah. So if I find myself like kind of thinking about something that's not making me feel good, I've trained my brain to realize that when I visualize the word Savannah in my head and I say it in my head, I go to those positive mental states. So you have to kind of pair this up with recognizing, oh, I'm in a negative trance, and then pull yourself out, and then visualize that word in your mind. It sounds complicated, and maybe I'm making it sound more abstract than it really is. But just find a word that, or a phrase, or a place, or a name. Like if you have a son and he's just the best thing there ever was to you in your life, say his name in your mind, see his face, and that will pull you out of the negative trance, and you'll be reminded of good things, right? But first, you need to pull yourself out of the negative trance and say, "I am in a trance." Pull yourself out, and then say the positive word. And so you can do, like I said, you can do this as a two-parter. Visualize the stop sign, and then go to the positive word. Ask me if you have questions on that. I realize I may have kind of glossed over a few of the things on that, but it's very effective. It's a very effective technique. So just find something that makes you feel good when you think of it, and see if, and remind yourself all those positive mental states that you've had with that person, that place, or that thing. Okay. All right. Next up is memory consolidation. And if you've done the course and you've gone through the content and you've actually tried it, you know how powerful this technique is. I've spoken to a lot of you who've taken the time to watch the course material and taken the time to do the exercise. You realize it works, and you realize it's very, very powerful. Um, when you ruminate, often it's because of a certain event that took place. It may be a few, but usually there's one that's really powerful, or two that's really contributing to the rumination. Figure out what that memory is. Figure out what it is and go through the process of changing the memory. That's what memory reconsolidation is, if you don't know. It's the process of changing memories. Memories change regardless of whether you want them to or not. They are affected by how you're feeling at the time that you recall them. They're affected by what you're doing. They're affected by where you are. And so the next time you call forth that memory again, you're going to remember how you were feeling, what you were doing, or where you were when you thought about it. And so they naturally change over time. They can change for the worse or they can change for the better. Now, obviously, with memory reconsolidation, we want to change them for the better. When you think about someone and that's hurt you, you can feel um, a negative feeling in your body, right? You can feel it in your body. That's your nervous system has associated that person with something bad, and so it puts you on alert. But on the opposite side of that, when you think about something good that's happened to you, or something that you enjoy doing, or someone that you really love, and you think of them, you feel good things in your body. You feel warm, fuzzy feelings. Instead of feeling small and powerless, you feel happy. You feel energetic. You feel energized. You feel um, more powerful, more capable, more at peace. What we can do with memory reconsolidation is we can take that negative memory and how it feels bad, and we can turn it so that when you think of it, you feel nothing but good things. You feel warm and fuzzy feelings. When we have changed the memory, your nervous system is going to let it go. And, it's possibly been ruminating because it's trying to keep you safe. It doesn't want that bad experience to happen again. And if it does, it wants you to act in a different way. If we change the memory and put it into a positive place, your nervous system stops having to replay it because there's nothing to keep you safe from. The emotional threat is gone. So if you've been ruminating about a specific event or handful of events, go through the process of changing those memories. We can't change the past, obviously. The past isn't here. It doesn't exist. We can't change that which doesn't exist, but we can change what you hold within you. And by changing that memory, your nervous system is going to let it go and you're going to move on with your life. You're going to move on with your life and you're going to stop obsessively thinking about the things that you've been thinking about. You're just going to move on with your day and you're going to remind yourself, who who am I trying to become? What does the best day look like for me? Why aren't I doing that right now? I'm going to go do those things that make me feel good, right? Mental health is all about changing your habits and changing your perception. And this is one of the ways that we can do that. And it's very powerful. And if you haven't already done so, I really encourage you to do so. There are nothing but good things that come from letting go of that which has been hurting you.